What is going on, my friends? Katie here, and welcome back to the 34th official episode of the King Darius Experience, where our awakening and empowering today is coming by way of understanding that your media isn't just content. And I say that throwing up the quotes and everything because a lot of times when it comes to marketing, we believe that they are just actions that we take that therefore get us results, when in actuality we forget the humanity that is behind this style of communication in a digital world, which is consistent content marketing in general and providing experiences for other people that allow them to peer into your world, dip into it like we talked about in the past couple episodes, experience it a little bit, and then go back to their own agendas and their own to-do lists and daily lives and lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. So you being a content creator and a communicator is actually infusing identity and confidence into the things that you want to do, right? It gives you better language, it gives you better messaging, it gives you better opportunities for collaboration, all that kind of stuff, things that we've talked about before, right? But what I want to specifically dive into today, so if you're listening on a Sacred World, or you're listening on any podcasting platform, or you're watching the experience on YouTube, the three things you're going to learn today, or at least have an open discussion with me about today, are emerging social media platforms, because we've been talking a lot about in the What's Sacred daily news for digital creators series that we've been doing about, Instagram Reels and the nature of TikTok and Spotify adding features to their platform and stuff like that. So we talk a lot about emerging platforms. So that's one thing that we're going to talk through today. The second thing I'm going to run through is going to be a little bit of my content journey, because I actually made almost like a commitment, if you will, like a lifelong commitment to storytelling when I first hopped into the business and entrepreneurial world, because I knew it was going to be something that is, has significance to my future. So we're going to cover that second, and then we're going to hop into what I believe are three of the core benefits of committing to a lifestyle of storytelling. So let's hop right in. So as we kind of navigate around the emergence of some of these new social media platforms or new features within social media platforms, I want to kind of shift your perspective on how you view your content specifically. So we talked about in a What's Sacred episode yesterday, announcing the Instagram Reels drop and all that kind of stuff, that you need to be the hub, the nucleus, and the content series that distributes to these features, to these channels, to these platforms, because they're always going to change. It's ever changing. There's always something new, and then when something is working, it's going to, like, we know that it's going to be one of those things where you can get attention around something, and it's not going to stay that way for more than 60 to 90 days if you're not constantly innovating around what you want and using these platforms as a mechanism for distribution, and not necessarily creating just because TikTok exists or YouTube exists or Instagram Reels is dropping or whatever. If you're planning your content editorial around the nature of a platform, you're going to stop and only ebb and flow with how the platform engages, interacts, and moves just in general, and it evolves over time. So what you do need to be thinking about, so that way you can have a proper perspective on emerging platforms, is obviously your content series and that kind of stuff, but you need to be thinking an orientation first. So that's the first thing, right? So is it square? Is it vertical? Is it landscape? And it's going to be a little bit interesting trying to get used to this. It was something that I had to get used to, of understanding that it doesn't matter what platform comes out. It's either going to be a landscape presentation, a square presentation, or a vertical presentation. And then within those presentations, like a YouTube video, Instagram stories, TikTok, Snapchat, or whatever, within those videos, there's also multiple orientations and sort of real estate that you can play with within those three orientations. So I tend to think very almost binary with my thinking, very in a codec type of way, where I really only think about the options I have. I can only communicate in audio, visual, textual, and I can only really present in square, vertical, or landscape. And that's not really going to change a whole lot until we get into a lot of like VR and AR stuff, which is something that I'm not even paying attention to or even concerned about, at this point in time, to where you can, see projections or see different, curved displays of stuff in regards to those projections, or, literally 3D imaging around. Like, there's going to be so many things that come into fruition, and that's just sight, right? You're going to have audio experiences and all that kind of stuff, and then those things pair together. That's a completely different world. But as it pertains to digital marketing as it stands on August 6, 2020, you can only communicate within the real estate of square, vertical, or landscape. regardless of what platform you're communicating on. So if you take whatever episodic content series that you're working on, or it doesn't even have to be episodic or, communicate with each other. It could just be you drop videos, right? Just in general, without a cadence, without a cohesion, just because you enjoy doing it. Regardless of what your nucleus piece of content or where your content derives from, you can only present it in 3 different fashions and then sort of use the real estate within those fashions. So when it comes to these emerging social media platforms, orientation is the first thing that you need to be focused on before you even thinking about the platform. Then you need to be thinking about your style, right? Because your style is going to sort of give you key indicators on where you should be posting this content and in which style you should be posting within that, channel or that platform. So you're going to be paying attention to what type of tone, what type of energy, what type of media elements do I have in this, and that's going to be your transitions, your intros, your outros, your little video bugs, your overlays, your motion graphics, maybe your highlights, your punch-ins, the way you color grade and color correct your content. These are all media elements that change the style of the presentation, and you guys have seen in a lot of our content that how you present actually completely changes the entire value proposition of any one media post or media piece of content, content. So your tone, your energy, your media elements, the category of content, right? The reason why we have What's Sacred and the King Darius Experience, even though they're all, around music, media, marketing, mindset, that kind of stuff, is because the King Darius Experience is where I get to welcome people into all things in my world and just kind of talk about what's working from a more philosophical, educative how-to, so that people can approach things the right way. They can have continual permission to work on the things that they love, and they can have continued inspiration and perspective on how to do those things. What's Sacred is a lot more of like a daily news ticker and channel that just kind of is giving updates on the industry, 3 to 7 minutes at a time, give or take. And it's only been a week since we launched that, and we're already 6-7 episodes in. And it's really fun because the dynamic between the two, that literal content category separation is helping me communicate better just in general, because now I have a place. What I was finding is, as I'm doing the King Darius Experience, there's just stuff happening all the time. Software is being updated, social media platforms are being added to, the ways of doing marketing are changing, even just culturally what's going on in the world is affecting the way that we're doing business and marketing. So I didn't want to turn the King Darius Experience into a news channel, but I also didn't want to not talk about those things. So the first thought was, what was my content category, to even decipher, should I have a separate content series or something that I work on to cover that gap or cross that bridge? And ultimately my answer was yes. So your orientation is more important than the social platform. Your content style is more important than the social platform. And then thirdly, your delivery is more important than the social platform, right? So that's going to be your frequency of posting, and that's going to be your positioning. So what the first 2 things help you do, your orientation, your style, it helps you position that content correctly. Because as we're learning very, very quickly, even within each individual platform, there are multiple ways to post. Even in the article we wrote about Instagram Reels, it's like, what do I do when I'm trying to connect with people, learn from a brand or buy from a brand or interact with a brand or an organization or a company or business or whatever it is? What is it? Their story? Is it their timeline? On their timeline, is it their video, their 15-second video, their 60-second video, their pictures, their carousels? Is it their IG Reels? Is it their IGTV? And that's just Instagram, right? So even within the world of Instagram, anymore, it's becoming one of those things where I would say in the next 12 to 36 months, most platforms will have platforms are probably starting to learn, it's not about the hype around us. It's literally, can we make square, vertical, and landscape orientation media extremely exciting on a 5 to 7 inch screen? And they're realizing we can do that versus boxing ourselves into one style of media or whatever. And what you're going to see is sort of like the merging of all of these worlds of the agency and marketing and advertising world with the social media and marketplace world, which are all different worlds in and of themselves. Think of the differences between like the Instagram, Facebook, YouTubes of the world versus like the Spotifys of the world on that side of things. And imagine all of those worlds coming together to where you can log into Instagram, listen to music, you can share, you can connect, you can buy things, you can post in 4, 5, 6 different ways, you can consume in 4, 5, 6 different ways. And literally that cross section between advertising and creating, like we talked about literally I think in the first or second episode of the King Darius experience, becomes a lot more blurry, right? Because it's literally just any form of media could either be an advertisement, a promotion, directly, indirectly, subliminally, right in your face. It could be collaborations between brands, creators, influencers. It could be siloed individual. It could be an individual presented as a brand. It could be a brand with the front of a personality or an individual doing a personal brand. There's so many different ways that you can post and create within these platforms that is creating different opportunities in general and creative ways to present the things that you're creating. So I think just in general, when it comes to these emerging social media platforms, we have to understand that we are creating content in certain orientations. We are creating content that has certain style, and then we're creating content that has certain delivery, and that's it. So this was something that I paid attention to very, very early on into my journey as an entrepreneur and a businessman, and that has been sort of like a left and right, up and down, all over the place type of journey. But it's been about a decade since I started this entire entrepreneurial journey in this business journey, but I didn't really commit to content, I would say. It was pretty quickly, but it was at least 6 to 12 months into the journey when I realized that, man, if I'm not saying something every day, what am I doing? Because there were so many in between times, and there were so many things that just weren't being covered that didn't have anything to do with like operations or selling or business or product development. And I was like, man, how do you become known as like those people that are just like those guys, those authorities, those thought leaders was a huge buzzword back then that has been, overexhausted since then. So we were trying to figure out how to be thought leaders and authorities and all of that kind of stuff. So I started in music education, and I started sort of using collaborative attention, if you will. So where I didn't have any, clout or authority or influence on my name. So I brought in up and coming people who did have that, and I collaborated with them, gave them higher quality media than they had themselves, which allowed them as a musician to go get, sponsors and more opportunities, clinics, gigs, all that kind of stuff. And it allowed us to sort of diversify our value offering to our audiences, both on the free side of it and the paid side of it. And then journeying more into like the marketing and advertising side of my journey, and starting publishing marketing content, I went from more of that, education, community building style of content into, more of that entertainment style of content mixed with education and music into just straight education content, right? Just how-to marketing stuff, how-to business stuff, how-to entrepreneurial stuff, and mindset / leadership stuff. And that was sort of the lane I was creating content in. And then, come into the third version, or the third phase, if you will, where now I'm focused a lot more on experiential marketing just in general and providing experiences for people. That's why it's even in the naming convention of this show. I want people to have an experience with my brand. If they hear about an update on What's Sacred, I want them to have a reference of that inside of King Darius in a deeper way. If I'm talking about something in the King Darius experience, I want them to be able to go learn about it, read about it, search it a little bit deeper themselves. Know that I'm going to show up again the next day and 2 days from there and 3 days from there and continually talk about these things so I can be a reliable, stable force of communication in a chaotic world. And I've attempted this many times. A lot of people around me have attempted this many times. It's not an easy feat to do. But your content will evolve over time. And for me specifically, it has never been a choice of, or it's never been a matter of, is content a choice? It's always been a matter of how and when can I get this content released? So because it's a non-negotiable part of who I am, it's one of the core mechanisms in how I present myself and how I market and how I sell and how I just communicate to the world in general, both on a free and a paid version of those things. So that is something that is just like, your doctors and your lawyers and any other position has your sort of baseline 101 information you should know if you're a practitioner within that industry. It's the same thing with marketing and media just in general. If you are in the media marketing advertising world and you are not creating content, you are the last person who should not be creating content, because every hustler, every grinder, every creator, every small business owner, entrepreneur, or a person aspiring to do those things should want to commit to storytelling in general, because that's where philosophy comes from, that's where authority comes from, that's where law and government comes from, that's where our buying decisions come from, because it has influence over those things. Like our entire economic system, regardless of what country you're from or what part of the world you're from, it literally relies on daily storytelling, from literally news to marketplace back to the individual family home. Is filled with content and messages and headlines and titles and categories and all of this kind of stuff of audio, visual, and textual media. So for me, that content journey of sort of going from entertainment to education to sort of like escapism and experience, and involving all of those now in my current content flow, it took me a long time to sort of recognize this and shave the fat off of stuff that wasn't working. But what I've found is that there are 3 core benefits that have been very helpful for me over time that I've experienced because I've committed to creating so much content. And that would be my IP and intelligence and overall growth has been a huge factor over time and a huge benefit, because this is where I'm literally pulling frameworks and I'm pulling, methodologies and ideologies and the way I do things and the way I interact with people. So for me, it's really easy for my IP, my intellectual property, to grow over time, because I have literally maybe 2,000 references of content points in my timeline that I can be like, oh yeah, I do remember doing that. I was already behaviorally doing that. So let me create a framework or a methodology or a way of doing things or a platform or a content series that talks about that. But if I didn't have those reference points, I would have no idea or foundation on which to build on top of my philosophy. So I think that those building blocks are extremely important. So IP was one of the core benefits that really sharpened all of my skills in branding, marketing, advertising, and selling. Then it also helps me to just get to work on my perspective of myself and my significance and how I view the way I am doing business and the way I am communicating. So a lot of times it adds value to who I am in moments when I'm like, is there really an ebb and flow to this season of business, or, working with this client, or, working over here as a contractor or whatever? Is there anything besides just showing up and doing this task or deliverable or this project or whatever? It's been sort of like the balancing force in between all of those moments that has reminded me, hey, when I'm not serving other people, there's significance to the things that I have to say, which means there's also significance in other moments in the things that I have to say too. I just have to start documenting them, recording them, and releasing them, because that's going to allow me to view myself in a different way. I'm not just an average player, and you shouldn't just view yourself as an average player in anything you're doing. If you're a teacher, right, you shouldn't just view yourself as an average teacher, especially with everything that's going on in the world. This is a prime opportunity to be on the front lines, right, and create content that allows you to position yourself as an influencer and eventually an authority in this space when you are innovating and pushing forward the sort of, I guess, the pioneer boundaries of whatever space that you're in. So that was the second benefit that it really helped me with, is my perspective of myself and my self-significance and awareness. And then the third thing, which has becoming, or has been coming into fruition a lot more, is my collaboration with other people, and then the satisfaction I get to experience when I'm watching them be so proud of the content that they're pushing out, because we're helping them shave the fat off of their communication, be sharper, be more effective, be more consistent, more frequent, and have a cadence that overall grows the things that they care about. And that's been beautiful for me, because as a human, it's just enjoyable when you get to see other humans happy, especially if you're part of the reason that they're happy or enjoying a thing. So content is not, or media is not just content, and content is not just media. Both of those things and all of these things in and of content marketing and storytelling are you, and it's literally your legacy. It's literally what you leave behind while you're here and while you're not here. It's the same way that when we were all growing up before the internet really took off, like I don't know about you guys, but our entire basement was full of scrapbooks from 1992 and on, in 1991, and the early that whole scrapbook era of the 80s and 90s, where you just have thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures. It's all just digital now. So the same sort of thing of like your parents passing down like all of those different scrapbooks and photo books, and I used to have like a whole section in our basement that had like VHS tapes from me when I was 1 through 9 years old or so, and those are fun moments, right? And those are things I get to look back on and remember, and that's just sort of part of growing up. At least every culture experiences that a little bit different, but social media and digital and storytelling and content marketing is very similar. Is like I still get to look back right now, like it's been 10 years, so my time hop is full of stuff that I get, oh man, I've been saying that quote since 2009 or 2011, or hey, I posted that video in 2013, that was really cool. I should actually evolve that because I have an updated understanding on what that was back then, because I hadn't had an extra 3, 4, 6, 7 years of experience. So I think for me, if I could communicate anything to you that would help awaken and empower you, is that you're not doing it for other people. You are not creating content for other people. They may be the audience, they may be the people who are consuming it, or even potentially collaborating with you. But if you're not doing it for you, the second that it's not beneficial to you, you're going to stop doing it. The difference between Derek today, KD today, and the Derek and KD from back in the, well, KD didn't exist back in the day, but the Derek back in the day is, I know why I'm creating content now. I know why I'm telling stories now. Before, it was always the end, right? It was, oh, I'm just trying to get a sale, or I'm just trying to build an audience, or I'm just trying to do what you're supposed to do because content marketing is the thing and it's king. Now it's, I'm doing this because I care about it, because I care about the things I'm talking about, which is helping me just be a research and developer and practitioner of my thing, but then also it's helping my family, it's giving us opportunities to have great conversations and push our family forward and all that kind of stuff. So I would just really encourage you guys to consider committing to a lifestyle of content and storytelling, and doing it for you. So other than that, I will see you in the next episode of the King Darius Experience. Peace.
Ayy, pulled up at the spot, but you ain't getting it. All these thirsty hoes looking for wedding rings, and all these niggas want something to put it in. Now we got these little babies in the rap game. Yeah, I just started, I'm already taking names. Like I said in gang, we don't play no games. I was done with waiting, so I took my place. Now niggas talk they shit because they think they sway. But in my phase, I sit back like blase, it's chit chat. I got cake, you big mad, in the decade just look bad. Shit's bigger than rap, you not considering that. My money thicker than that, my vision clearer than that. Dry like 10,000.